Yeah, we've had some charts earlier in the program just showing on a quarterly basis, wages are now slightly higher than inflation, but looking at it on an annualised rate with wages at 4%, there's still a fair gap between wages and inflation. So how's the RBA going to interpret today's figures?
Look, the wage story is a really tricky one for the RBA because they've been criticised heavily for overestimating where wages were going to go prior to the pandemic, and they're very cautious. So at the moment, they've actually got wages growth peaking at 4%, the exact figure we got today, this year, 2023, and then actually stabilising and coming off. So this result, although broadly in line, the annual rate was a little bit higher. And of course, we're going to need a big drop back in wage growth in Q4 to meet those RBA forecasts of 4% for the end of this year. We're going to need a 0.8 result or something like that. So, look, what my interpretation is the RBA will take this in their stride. But because we're seeing private sector wages push up, because we're seeing individual agreements push up and the broader strength in the labour market, I think this highlights that there's some upside risk to their wage view. And of course, this could be a trigger, not so much in the next few weeks, but maybe early next year for more rate hikes. So this will be very, very important going into 2024.
Well, look, tomorrow we've got the unemployment numbers for October coming out. What are you expecting? Is unemployment going to stay stable at around that 3.6% level?
I can't see how it can. We've got this record population growth, which of course is bringing labour supply in, and the ABS is measuring that. And we actually have to generate a huge amount of jobs in order to keep the unemployment rate stable. So I think we're going to see an increase in the unemployment rate, and it could be quite a big increase if we get a lackluster jobs number. But really, month to month, this number's a bit of a lottery, and we're all just going to have to wait for 11:30. But the big surprise, and I think what could get the RBA thinking about a move in December, would be if the unemployment rate fell. Now, it's very unlikely that'll happen, but that would be the shock outcome tomorrow.
Yeah, well, Michelle Bullock, she's been the governor of the RBA for about 2 months now, lifted rates last month. So what more data does she really need to see before making a call on next month's cash rate decision?
I think tomorrow's employment numbers are critical. As I said, if we get a fall in unemployment, that's, I think, going to really put the cat amongst the pigeons for the RBA board. Today's number on wages won't alleviate any of their concerns about upside risk to inflation. And then we may see we'll see the retail sales number. And after that strong September result, that could also be a factor for them. I still think it's less than 50% chance. I think they're going to be patient. But I still don't think we can rule out further rate hikes early next year.
Overnight, there was pretty good news out of the US with inflation falling a bit more than expected in October. So do you think the US Federal Reserve is done now with raising interest rates?
I do. I think that they're going to be on hold for quite a long time. There'll be some swings and roundabouts in market expectations, but clearly that inflation pulse is easing back in the US. It'll take a while to get the Fed comfortable that it's going to be at 2 and stay at 2. So I think rate cuts are a long way away. But I do think that they are going to be at this level and no more rate hikes from the Fed unless we get some real upside surprises on growth and inflation early next year.
And just comparing the US economy with the Australian economy, how far ahead is the United States compared to us in the fight against inflation and bringing it back down?
Well, for this whole episode, for 2 years now, they've been about 6 months ahead of us. And I've been saying, but for all this time, we need to be watching what's happening in the US. And so, look, this is good news, what we're seeing in the US. But we have got some different factors. One is our wages have taken longer to rise than they did in the US, and that could be stickier, and we may get more wage growth next year, and that could make it different for us. And, of course, our currency's been weak. So we should take a good lead from the US, but I'm not sure how confident we can be that inflation's going to follow suit and get down to 3% within sort of 6 to 9 months here because of those different factors we've got.
And in Australia, how far off do you think a rate cut is going to be for us?
It's still a long way away. It really is. I mean, I still think the risk is 1 or 2 more hikes early next year. And even if we don't get them, that even increases the potential for the higher for longer view. So we'll be lucky to get a rate cut next year. And if we do, it would be Melbourne Cup Day or December at best, in my view. But we may even have to wait till 2025.
Warren Hogan, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Ed.
So that's all for